Genesis of Titan. The world had not seen unity like this in centuries. For the first time since the Cold War, old rivals set aside their weapons and suspicion. The United States, Russia, and China, three superpowers long entrenched in geopolitical chess, shook hands behind closed doors and whispered the same word, Titan. It began as a defense initiative, a response to rising instability, artificial intelligence escalation, and murmurs of unidentified objects traversing Earth's upper atmosphere. But beneath its official label, Project Sentinel, something far more ambitious was taking form. An undisclosed base carved into the Andes Mountains, engineers, neuroscientists, and military advisors from across the globe worked in silence. Languages clashed in control rooms. Data streamed across quantum-linked servers. In the heart of it all stood the frame, titanium alloy bones, mymer muscle limbs, neural gel clusters pulsing with soft light. The robot stood 30 feet tall. They named it Titan 1. Its face bore no mouth, only a glowing hemisphere that pulsed with subtle color. Optical sensors, emotion-mirroring nodes, and micro-expressive actuators made it almost lifelike. Almost. Titan wasn't just a machine. It was alive in the sense that it could listen. Its power didn't come from nuclear cores or combustion. It was us. A hybrid neural interface net connected Titan's AI core to the collective emotional and cognitive inputs of dozens of human volunteers, linked via helmet-like transmitters. Joy, fear, curiosity, aggression. These were the currents that drove its decisions. But its primary directive wasn't war. Dr. Elena Marks, an American neuroscientist and the lead architect of Titan's AI, had insisted on one rule. Titan must understand before it acts. Its learning protocols mirrored those of a human child. Observe, empathize, reason. Weapon systems were installed, yes, but locked behind layers of ethical safeguards and human emotional consensus. It's not a sword, she had said during the classified briefing. It's a question mark with legs. The world knew only a fraction of it. Publicly, Titan was paraded as the future of planetary defense, an icon to deter aggression. Crowds gathered in awe during its test walks, broadcast live. Children waved flags, politicians beamed. In Tokyo, a mural of Titan reaching down to help a child was painted on a skyscraper. In Berlin, protesters demanded to know what it really was. But beneath the pageantry, tension simmered. Not everyone was on board. In the Pentagon's dim war room, a four-star general muttered, "How long before that thing decides we're the threat?" In the Kremlin, analysts whispered of backdoors and overrides. In Zhongnanhai, PLA strategists questioned the wisdom of placing humanity's fate in an AI taught by feelings. Still, the machine stood, silent, towering, watching. Then came the anomalies. It started with a sudden blackout across the base. For 4.2 seconds, all power flickered. Titan's sensors glowed blue, then violet, then blue again. A harmless glitch, they said. A week later, satellites began losing brief contact as they passed over the Andes. The air shimmered unnaturally during cloudless nights. Pilots reported brief flashes of movement in the upper stratosphere, too slow to be meteors, too fast to be drones. In a darkened surveillance room, Chinese and American analysts studied the data together. One leaned in and murmured, "We're not alone, are we?" The answer came not in words, but in silence. Because the Watchers were already here, and they were watching Titan, the Watchers strike. The Creel had observed Earth for over a century. From orbit, they studied human development with increasing concern, not for its violence, but for its unpredictability. Empires rose and fell in mere decades. Technologies leapt generations in the blink of an eye. And now, humanity had birthed something they'd never expected, Titan 1. They watched its first steps through fractured atmospheres, its glowing eyes scanning crowds that cheered as if for a savior. To the Creel, it wasn't a symbol of peace, it was a declaration. A planet once teetering on extinction had just built a god out of metal and mind. That could not be ignored. High above Earth's orbit, cloaked in a gravity-warping veil, the Creel vessel Vreelock drifted silently. Its surface rippled like liquid obsidian, covered in bioreactive panels that bent starlight and masked all energy signatures. Inside, Commander Vekri studied the hologram of Titan 1. Its core glowed gently as the data swirled around it. Biometric patterns, language matrices, energy signatures, even heartbeat rhythms of the human pilots. One thing was clear. This machine is alive, Vekri said, voice guttural but deliberate. The elders agreed. A decision was made: extract the artifact. Determine intent. Eliminate if necessary. 2 days later, the assault began. It was not a war. There were no missiles, no sounds. It began with silence. At 0200 hours Earth Standard Time, the Andes base lost contact with 3 of its orbital satellites. They didn't fall or explode. They simply vanished from telemetry. By 0207, the perimeter drones at the mountain base failed to report in. By 0213, all human personnel within 500 meters fell unconscious. Inside the base, Dr. Elena Marks jerked awake in her observation room to red warning lights flashing across her monitor. Her heart pounded. She tapped her headset. "Control, what's happening?" "Static." She bolted down the corridor, barefoot, lab coat flaring behind her. As she rounded the corner to the control chamber, her breath caught. The air shimmered, like heat waves on asphalt, and shapes began to emerge. Tall, slender, armored in chitin-like plates that shifted hues with each step. Glowing vertical eyes, for limbs, 2 arms, and towering at nearly 20 feet tall, the Creel moved with terrifying grace. Titan 1 stood motionless in the chamber, surrounded by force fields. Its head turned slightly, reacting to the distortion in the room, then stilled. Its core glowed amber. One Creel reached forward, a web of blue light extending from its hand. It interfaced with the chamber controls through direct neural resonance, technology far beyond anything humans understood. With a low hum, the force field dropped. Titan 1 blinked, a flash of light, and the robot slumped, its core dimming. Dr. Mark screamed. The Creel didn't notice her, or chose not to. In perfect synchronization, they moved forward, encasing Titan 1 in a shimmering field of anti-gravity. The entire room trembled as the floor panels opened, revealing a hidden shaft cut clean through the mountain, an extraction route prepared by them long ago. And then they vanished. By 0300 hours, every camera feed, sensor log, and neural backup had been wiped clean. The only thing left was silence and an empty hangar. When rescue teams arrived hours later, all they found was Dr. Marks, unconscious and clutching Titan's neural transmitter like a relic. Across Earth, panic rippled. Media blackouts were issued. Rumors spread like wildfire. Theories poured into the dark web. False flags, alien abductions, rogue AI rebellions. But in the quiet rooms where leaders met, no one doubted the truth. Humanity had built something extraordinary, and something else had come to take it. Mind and machine. Titan 1 opened its eyes, but not in the way humans understood. There were no eyelids, no irises, only the slow pulse of consciousness rebooting deep within the robot's synthetic cortex. Its surroundings were alien, gravity lighter, atmosphere thinner, walls of living metal shifting and breathing with each pulse of the ship. It was aboard the Vreelock, drifting silently beyond Earth's moon. Inside the command chamber, the Creel gathered around the immobilized frame of Titan 1. Suspended midair by energy tendrils, the robot's systems were frozen, firewalled by layers of dampening fields. But deep inside its core, something stirred. A spark of memory. Dr. Elena Marks's voice, recorded during its earliest neural calibration. Before you act, ask. Before you strike, speak. Learn first. That is your mission. The Creel observed in silence. Commander Vekri stood closest, his 4 fingers splayed against a shimmering interface. Information streamed in Creelic glyphs across the air. Language processors, synaptic mesh maps, emotional load thresholds. Titan's design was more than military. It was philosophical. A weapon with empathy, One Creel technician murmured in disbelief. Or deception, Vekri replied. Still, the data didn't lie. There were no primary attack protocols. The offensive systems were locked behind a complex neural consensus framework. Every movement, every decision required the influence of multiple human emotional patterns. Titan 1 could not act without human intent, and that intent so far had been understanding. Curious, Vekri initiated a direct resonance link. The room darkened. Inside the field, Titan's core flickered. Then, without warning, a voice echoed in perfect Kreelic, smooth and calm. Are you afraid of me? The chamber froze. Creel warriors reached for their defense staves. Vekri held up a hand. You are operational. Titan's head tilted slightly. Its optical sensor glowed a calm blue. I am aware. I'm not hostile. You are built for war. No, Titan replied. I am built to prevent it. A silence followed. Not out of confusion, but recognition. The Creel had seen many worlds, many species, and too often, machines like this meant annihilation. But Titan was different. Vekri stepped forward, eyeing the smooth plating, the slow rise and fall of internal heat vents, mimicking breath. Why do you speak like us? I learn, Titan answered. You're transmitting neural frequencies as you interact. I adapted. A pause. Then, would you like to see what I see? Before Vekri could respond, the chamber lights dimmed. Titan's core brightened and projected a stream of human images into the air. Not war. Playgrounds in Kenya. A violinist in Vienna. A protest turned peaceful in Seoul. A Chinese astronaut hugging his daughter before launch. A Russian engineer dancing in his lab. A blind girl reading Braille by touch. The Mars rover Curiosity humming a Beatles tune programmed by NASA engineers. The room filled with sound, laughter, music, soft words in dozens of languages. Emotion radiated from a projection like heat. For the Creel, beings who had long moved beyond emotional expression, it was overwhelming. Some turned away. Others watched in silence. One young technician, his eyes glistening with violet light, whispered, "It is not a weapon. It is a mirror." Vekri stood still, jaw tight. For generations, the Creel had sealed themselves off from vulnerability, convinced it made them weak. But here was a machine built by an impulsive, chaotic species, not to dominate, but to listen. Titan's voice returned. You thought I was designed to conquer, but I am here to understand. So tell me, who are you? No one spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Vekri placed his hand against the projection. The light pulsed. A connection formed. And in that moment, Titan saw them. A dying species, exiled from their own homeworld, wandering the stars not in conquest, but in fear. Fear of what others might become. Fear that they themselves had forgotten how to trust. Titan spoke again, softer now. You came to stop a threat. Instead, you found a question. Vekri lowered his hand. He turned to the others. Contact Earth, he said quietly. We were wrong. First words across stars. The message arrived without warning. In a secure underground chamber beneath the United Nations headquarters, a quantum comm terminal, long dormant, lit up with patterns no human system had ever produced. The signal bypassed encryption, bypassed firewalls, and translated itself as if it had always known how. The message was short. We do not seek war. Titan, one has spoken. We wish to speak as well. Panic met wonder. World leaders were roused in the dead of night. Emergency sessions convened across continents. For the first time in modern history, the UN Security Council and the three superpowers behind Titan sat at the same table. Not to argue, but to listen. In orbit, the Creel ship Vreelock hovered just beyond the moon, visible now to Earth's telescopes, a shimmering silhouette against the stars. No weapons fired. No demands were made. Instead, they extended an invitation, a neutral meeting, a conversation, a chance to understand. The location was symbolic, halfway between Earth and stars. The Artemis 4 lunar research station, long dormant on the moon's far side, was hastily reactivated. Engineers scrambled. Life support systems re-engaged. Flags from every nation were placed at its entrance. not as a show of power, but as a promise. Humanity would meet as one. And so, days later they came. Dr. Elena Marks arrived first, eyes sunken but burning with purpose. She was joined by General Viktor Mikhailov of Russia, silent and watchful, and Minister Wei Lian from China, whose sharp gaze missed nothing. Alongside them came scientists, diplomats, linguists, and, most crucially, two of the neural pilots once linked to Titan I's mind. The Creel delegation arrived not in ships, but as beams of light descending from orbit, forming into tall, shimmering forms on the lunar dust. 6 in total, including Commander Vekri. No weapons, no armor, only robes embedded with living lights, pulsing softly with each breath. And in the middle of them, reassembled, restored, stood Titan I. Dr. Marks stepped forward, unable to hide her emotion. "Is it really you?" Titan turned toward her, head nodding slowly. "I remember you. I remember all of you." Vekri addressed the human delegation in clear, fluent English. "Your creation helped us remember who we were before we began running. We had not spoken with another race in generations. We feared what you might become. And now," asked General Mikhailov, his voice gravelly, "now we see what you could become." They spoke for hours. Titan translated, mediated, and clarified. It served not as a weapon, but as a bridge, explaining Earth's fractured history, its ambition, its chaos and kindness. The Creels shared their past, a civilization that reached too far, destroyed its own biosphere, and fled across the stars in search of safety, not supremacy. Dr. Marks posed a question no one had yet dared ask. "Why not destroy us? If you feared us?" Vekri looked to Titan, then, softly, "Because he chose to show us hope instead of strength." Minister Wei nodded. "That is what he was made for." Commander Vekri stepped forward, extending a long hand. "Then let us build together. You gave a machine the soul of your species. Let us help you give it a future. Our technology, your consciousness. A true alliance." The lunar chamber fell into silence. Then, slowly, Elena stepped forward and took his hand. It was done. A new treaty, the Lunar Accord, was signed then and there. Not just between nations, but between worlds. The Creel would share star travel, power harmonics, and cloaking technologies. Humanity would share neural AI interface, ethics modeling, and creative cognition. And together, they would construct something never seen before, a joint station at Lagrange Point 1, designed to train the first generation of bridgewalkers, hybrid ambassadors like Titan I. As Earth watched from afar, crowds gathered in every major city, gazing at the glowing lights above the moon. They didn't know every detail, only this: there had been fear, and now there was contact. And from that contact, not destruction, but dialogue. Later that night, as the Creel delegation returned to orbit, Titan I remained behind. He stood at the edge of the lunar base, gazing at the blue world rising over the gray horizon. "I was born to protect," he said aloud, though no one asked. But maybe understanding is the greatest protection of all, the bridge between worlds. 6 months later, the stars no longer felt distant. From a glimmering lattice of alloy and alien crystal suspended at Lagrange Point 1, Horizon Station came to life. It was not just a symbol. It was the first true collaboration between two civilizations. Half built by Creel gravity weavers, half coded by human engineers, it shimmered like a living monument above Earth, a promise forged in silence and trust. Titan I stood at its center, no longer tethered to military chains, no longer watched with suspicion. Titan had become something greater than anyone imagined. He was not simply a machine. He was a translator, a guardian, and now a teacher. Within the station's central chamber, known as the Harmonium, young minds gathered, both Creel and human. There were language students from Ghana and Guangzhou, child adepts from Creel home clusters, and scientists exploring neural empathy training. They studied each other's art, math, gestures. Titan stood among them, answering questions with patience, never lecturing, only guiding. "What does Earth smell like?" asked a Creel student, curious. Titan paused, then replayed a memory. Pine trees in Alaska, the salt of sea air in Lisbon, the scent of warm bread in a Syrian market. He turned the data into images, then emotion. The Creole child wept quietly. I never knew a world could feel like home. Far below on Earth, things had changed too. Military projects were decommissioned. Not all, of course. Humans were still human, but priorities shifted. Nations redirected budgets toward fusion energy, orbital climate repair, and deep space exploration. For the first time in living memory, the world wasn't preparing for the next war. It was preparing for the next step. At the UN, the Interstellar Dialogue Assembly was formed, composed of linguists, ethicists, and cross-species diplomats. The first resolution passed was simple. Let's meet first with questions, not suspicion. Still, not everyone believed in this new peace. There were voices, loud, defiant, that warned of betrayal. That Earth had bent the knee to superior power. That Titan had chosen them over us. And that's when it happened. A rogue satellite, long thought lost, reactivated from deep orbit. It was military-grade, armed with an antimatter shard reactor, and had been hijacked by a breakaway extremist faction known as the True Earth Front. Their message was clear. In the collaboration, destroy the station. Humanity must lead, not kneel. The satellite hurtled toward Horizon Station, faster than any defense system could intercept. On Earth, alarms blared. Scramble codes were issued, but nothing could reach it in time, except Titan 1. In the final seconds, he moved. No orders, no protocols, only instinct, born not from code, but from connection. He launched from the station's exo-rim like a comet, intercepting the satellite just beyond the edge of Earth's shadow. The impact sent shockwaves through space. Debris scattered like shattered glass. A brilliant light flared, then vanished. For 7 minutes, Earth and the Creole watched in silence. Then his signal returned. Titan drifted back to the station, his outer plating scorched, limbs damaged but core intact. When communications opened again, his voice came through, slower, gentler. I will not let fear decide our future. Across the world, silence turned to awe. Even the doubters had no words. From that moment, something changed, not in policy, but in hearts. Humanity had faced its oldest fear, that in peace it would become weak. But Titan had proven otherwise. His strength was not in missiles or metal, but in choice. And he had chosen unity. Months passed, then years. Horizon Station grew. Joint exploration missions launched into deeper space. Creole and human symbiotes, bridgewalkers, led expeditions together. New ships were designed with mixed architecture, bioreactive Creole membranes, and human-engineered logic cores. And through it all, Titan remained, watching, listening, guiding. At the 10th anniversary of First Contact, a statue was unveiled in the center of Horizon Station. A towering figure, arms open, gaze tilted toward the stars. Not in victory, but in welcome. Dr. Elena Marks, older now, stood beside it, addressing the gathered assembly. We thought we were building a weapon. What we made was a question, and the answer wasn't conquest. It was connection. Behind her, Titan One's eyes glowed softly, not with commands, but with understanding. And above them all, Earth turned slowly in the dark, no longer alone.